Hello, I'm Mary Lowman, and this is Mondays with Mary. All of us have faced failures in our lives, big ones and small ones, but the good news is that failures do not have to be fatal. Rather, they can be used by God to teach us and grow us. In fact, most of us learn our neediest lessons through failure. C.S. Lewis states the blessing of failure so well in his book, Mere Christianity. He writes, "Failure cures our illusions about ourselves and teaches us to depend on God. We learn on the one hand that we cannot trust ourselves even in our best moments, and on the other, that we need not despair even in our worst, for our failures are forgiven." So those failures that look like total disasters to you can indeed be an instrument of blessing to teach you this essential truth about yourself, to cure your illusions about yourself, as Lewis writes. Therefore, our failures are not fatal because they help us see our true condition, and that leads us to turn to God. The Apostle Peter is a good example of how God can turn failures into stepping stones. Just before Peter failed Jesus by denying him, Jesus said to him, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail." Yet knowing the great failure Peter was to become in just a few short hours, Jesus did not discard him. People discard us for failures. Jesus doesn't. People refuse to give you second chances. Jesus doesn't. People look at failure as the end of the road. Jesus sees it as a place of new beginnings. Jesus told Peter he had already prayed for him that when you have turned back, he would strengthen his brothers. Jesus believed that even though Peter was going to fail miserably, he could have a comeback. And as a result of failing and coming back, Peter would be able to strengthen his brothers. Do you see what I mean about failures? God is able to use it for good in our lives. If you thought that your past failures disqualified you to serve the Lord, well, think again. God can turn them into avenues of service. Do you feel totally guilt-ridden, as though you've had a fatal failure? Please understand this marvelous truth. Jesus is in the business of restoration and recovery. He will not discard you, just as he did not discard Peter when Peter denied him 3 times. You see, Satan meant to use failure to destroy Peter, but God used it to refine him. Though it wasn't right for Peter to fail Jesus as he did, nonetheless, that failure was used by God to help Peter become the mighty apostle we read about in Acts. God specializes in taking our failures and turning them into avenues of blessing and avenues of growth if we will allow him to do so. It did not take God by surprise when you failed, and he is waiting to restore you. Be encouraged by that truth today.